He's appointed an alternate, but since we don't have a full board, he's being used as. Yes, gotcha. That one works?
Talk about silence.
Testing, testing.
They all are.
I hope so. These two definitely.
Do you not want to use that one, Jim?
I'm just talking into it, right? Or push the button?
Yeah, press the button.
Okay, it's on green, so
Yep, that means it works.
everybody good? Everybody ready? We're ready. Cindy, you ready? All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Bristol Township Zoning Hearing
Testing.
Board. I apologize for that. We're trying out a new system here, folks, so bear with us, I guess.
Sounds like my music room on a Sunday.
Okay, let's get started by standing. Please remove your hats for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let me introduce you to a few people before we get started. To my left, our solicitor, Ken Fetterman, our stenographer, Cindy Oliveira, and also with us tonight is our township manager, Randy Elton. Mr. Secretary, call the board, please.
Colleen Dunn.
Here.
Mark DeMarcus.
Here.
Jim McMahon.
Here.
Gerard Lycon.
Here.
Ed Murphy, here.
Okay, real quick, before we get started with the agenda, is anybody here for number 6 on the agenda, JNL Real Properties LLC? If you are, that case has been settled, so, if you, no, okay, see nobody? All right, Ken, would you like to elaborate on that real
Yeah,
quick?
sure. I'll mention, there was an original hearing, there was an appeal to the Common Pleas Court on the original application, which was approved. So this settlement resolves not only the substantial challenge to the zoning ordinance, but also resolves the appeal in Common Pleas Court. So the entire matter is now sort of out of the docket, if you will, which is a good thing.
Okay, thank you. All right, first on the agenda, William Smith, 6605 Airport Road, Levittown, PA. Please come on up, sir.
It is off. Yeah. I'm sorry, Solicitor Fetterman, do you not have to read the withdrawal in the record, though? Don't you have to read number 6 withdrawal in the record?
I'll read it, Randy.
Mr. McMahon has it, but it's not necessary, but we're happy to do it. So, go ahead, Jim.
Okay, for the record, so this is email to Ken Fetterman. It's also on the email thread was Randy Elton, Randy Flager, and Scott Holbert. Dear Mr. Fetterman, this office represents J&L Real Properties LLC and Influent Retrieval Incorporated. As many of you may recall, my client filed the above stated substantive validity challenge Please accept this correspondence as a confirmation that my client wishes to withdraw the substance validity challenge with prejudice. I've copied all counsel who have requested party status to this hearing, as well as the counsel for the equitable owner of the property situated across the street from the client's property. Please contact me if any questions. Sincerely, Andrew R. Stoll.
Right, and as I mentioned, initially, there was a zoning hearing matter which the board approved, the variance, in this case, for the applicant. It was appealed by Mr. Stoll's client. That matter was sent up to Common Pleas Court, where it now resides. That matter was appealed to Common Pleas Court, where it resides presently, and with the withdrawal of this challenge, that matter in Common Pleas Court will also be dismissed. So this resolves all issues between the parties.
Okay.
No.
This one.
Both of these
No, I turned mine a little one off.
Okay, here.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, I'm trying to get some construction done on my property, but evidently, I'm filing a variance because of,
Do you have a mail-in, sir?
the mail-in.
Where you posted your property and notified your neighbors?
Yes.
Can you bring them up to me, please?
Swear him in.
Can you bring them up to me?
Yes, I'm getting them out.
I'm going to swear you in first, sir. Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
William E. Smith, 6605 Airport Road, Levittown, Pennsylvania, 19057. Okay. Come on. Well, I thought I had everything, okay. Thought I had everything together. I got it on the PowerPoint.
What don't you have?
I have the papers, I'm just trying to find them. I guess I wasn't prepared.
It's okay, take your time, but we need them to proceed.
Okay, here they are right here.
Here, let me see.
There's two copies. When I first picked it up, they didn't have some of the construction that I was doing, so they reissued the mail-in.
Look at the posting of the property.
It's posted, yes. It is posted,
You have a picture of that?
yeah. I got it on my phone, or I got it on the PowerPoint if you, I'm sorry?
I'll look at your phone, I'm fine with that.
Got to power up because we were in a meeting.
What time? And these are all the neighbors you were told to notify, right? Okay,
I only got two neighbors, one on each side.
fair enough.
Brick in the back of me. something real quick.
Okay. And this is your
My
tree in front of your house, yeah. Okay, good enough. Thank you.
There's also one in the window.
Here, let me,
Sir, I'm having a hard time hearing. Can you come back to the mic, please?
There's also one in the window. A
Let me-
tree in the window.
let me just see that one more time, so I can take a picture of it. Thank you. Okay, you can proceed.
Okay, I would like to, my porch is falling apart. It's gonna be crumbling pretty soon. I'm gonna have to condemn it and not let my grandkids or anybody out there. I'd like to have it taken apart.
Sir, you
Yeah.
said you had a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, so
I'll
just,
find it here, just.
yeah, it's okay. For the record, there's a discrepancy.
I don't think we need it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Continue with your presentation.
yeah, just go ahead. I'll make note of it in the opinion.
The discrepancy
That's
is,
As to the section, Mr. McTagg cited a section that doesn't exist, actually, so
yeah, they sent me a letter saying it was,
it's 64,
it should be 61 instead of 62.
yeah, it's fine. I'll clean it up in the opinion. It's not a problem.
There's a PowerPoint and also it's in, Word document, or not Word, but,
Yeah.
yes. Here's a letter that was sent about.
You're gonna have to talk into the microphone.
The letters that were sent,
Right, I got it.
the change,
Yep, I have it.
okay.
Yep. Thank you.
I do have one more of the neighbors. It's the actual hotel. I don't know if I need it or not, but I got it.
Okay.
You got Motel 6 in front of me. Okay, well, I guess my lot was done as a non-conformant lot. Evidently, it doesn't have 15 feet from the structure to my property line. But as you can see up here, where you got the 150 feet, that's the east side of the house. The construction I'm doing in the front does not exceed towards that property line. It goes from, my house got like an L in it. It's just gonna fill that L up. And then on the back patio, I'm gonna have like a roof put on. So I don't have to sit out in the sun all year and go through like 4 or 5 umbrellas a year. The existing, the roof is gonna be over the existing pad in the back of the house. And the deck is gonna be the porch. It's gonna be a deck style in the front of the house, yes.
So you need a side yard variance for both, or just for the front, just for the back?
Well, neither one of them are going past the house, so the contractor applied for a permit, and they told him no, they couldn't get a permit to build. That we had to put in a variance to get a variance to do the construction. But like I said, nothing's going outside the east side of the house. It's all going forward and back.
Not putting a roof on the front of the house?
No.
Is that all you have for your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have any questions from the board? Randy, anything to add?
No, just that you can see their nonconformity. He's in an M2 manufacturing district, so they're a nonconformity residential use in an M2 manufacturing district, so they don't meet any of the normal residential setback requirements.
Anybody from the audience like to come up for or against this project? See none? All right, I need a motion from the board to accept or deny this application. To accept or deny? I need a second. I'll second. Anybody on denial? None? All right, Mr. Secretary, call the board, please.
Gerard Lycon.
Yes.
Mark DeMarcus. Yes. Jim McMahon.
Yes.
Colleen Dunn.
Yes.
Ed Murphy, yes. Good luck, buddy.
Thank you. Now, as far as the permit, did the contractor apply for that, or?
You'll have to go to the township office tomorrow and see people to apply for that.
So technically, what happens now is you have to wait for your opinion. So your contractor can, because anybody here can appeal, or anybody from the neighboring can appeal. Technically, we tell you officially you have to wait until the appeal period runs out, but you have the right to apply and do the work at your own risk.
Okay.
Seeing that there was
How-
no
how- I
issues
mean, how
here.
long-
You have 45 days to issue
Okay.
the opinion.
Okay.
Seeing that there was nobody here,
Right, now, my
again,
contractor's here, so all he has to do is apply for the permit, and we can go from there.
Well,
you,
yeah,
you
Right,
wait for the permit to be
Right,
issued,
Right,
yes.
right, I understand, yes.
presuming there's no appeal.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
sure.
Now, all right. Thank you.
Right, sorry, I forgot about this, but when you come up, make sure the green light's on in the microphone, please. All right, next on the agenda is Leonard Ropchad, 64 Roundwood Lane, Levittown, PA. Please come on up.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can you state your name and spell it for the record,
And
please?
Rupchan, 64 Roundwood Lane, Levittown, Pennsylvania, 19055.
Okay, can you bring your mailings, please? Thank you. What about the posting? You have a picture of it? Very good, thank you.
Is the green light on the microphone?
Yep, green light's on. Who's the gentleman with you?
My name is Chris Groff. I'm just here, Leo's accent's a little hard to understand, so I'm just here to help clarify.
You have to be sworn in, though.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can you spell your name for the record, please?
Christopher Groff, Groff.
Thank you.
All right, so Leo is looking to build a front and rear porch on his house, covering and a pad. He's looking for a variance on the building envelope as well as impervious structure. Building envelope with both porches will be at 1.2% over, and impervious structure he'll be at 3.9% over the current allowance. He has his mail-ins from his neighbors as well as a receipt to the power company that is directly behind the house.
Just for the record, are you assisting him in the construction of this, or?
Not in the construction.
Okay.
Is that all your, that's it for your presentation?
Yes.
Anybody else from the board have any questions? Randy, anything to add? Anybody from the audience like to come up for or against this project? All right, need a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Anybody denying the application? Call the board, please.
Gerard Lycon,
Yes.
Mark DeMarcus, Jim McMahon,
Yes.
Colleen Dunn,
Yes.
Ed Murphy, yes. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, Gregory Saba, 1041 Rosa Avenue, Croydon, PA. Please come on up.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can you state your name and spell it for the record?
Joseph Primiano, Primiano. I am the architect for the applicant. I have copies of the notices that were served, along with pictures of the notice that was posted.
Great, bring him up.
One was mailed, 3 were signatures, and 2 photos.
Good, great. You can proceed.
I do have a PDF file if the board wants to put that on there, or I can focus on the title sheet of my drawings, which is pretty much, it illustrates the site plan. We are in an R3 zone. It's a single-family dwelling, and we are here for a side yard setback variance.
What's the pleasure of the board?
He can just, I don't.
I could describe it.
All right.
So the existing right side of the house has several jogs in it. In those jogs are a non-code compliant staircase that goes to the basement. There's also an interior staircase that goes to the second floor. Both are very undersized in width. The intent is to move those staircases and stack them over each other and widen them so they would be at least 3 feet wide. By doing so, we need an extra 10 inches added to the side of the house. The existing setback in that zone is 6 feet, and the current house is existing at 5.2. What we are asking for is that extra 10 inches to square the house off along that entire side, so the entire house would be at the 5.2 and everything would line up. We're not encroaching any further than what's already existing, but it would be to square the house off on that side. We did keep windows to a minimum for privacy concerns because there is a neighbor, and we didn't want to put a ton of windows on that side so neighbors aren't looking at each other. So there was some thought that was put into the design. No other variances are required. We are significantly under on building coverage. We are under on impervious coverage, and there are no other setback issues.
So this is the minimum variance that you need to accomplish the project, correct?
That is correct. That's it.
Anybody have any questions?
I just have one.
Sure.
How do the neighbors feel, I guess, from looking at the property street side on the right-hand side? Because it seems like, I know you said the windows would be a lot closer than, obviously currently it is now.
Well, the house isn't getting any closer. It's staying at the 5.2 feet. What we're doing is we're just squaring off the edges. And there are no windows getting put in there. So if you look at the title sheet, the house jogs back to the 6-foot mark. So we're just pushing the walls out 10 inches so they align with the existing part of the house. So that 5.2 is in the, like, let's say the middle section of the house. So the front corner and the back corner are getting pushed out that 10 inches, so that entire wall is all even.
Bedrooms upstairs, or?
It's for a stairwell, yes. There are bedrooms, but all the bedrooms are on the opposite side of the house. So there would be no bedrooms facing the neighbor.
So, because you're saying just not putting windows in, so bedrooms, you have windows.
Well, that is correct, yes. Every bedroom would need an egress window. There are plenty of windows throughout the house. So we didn't put them in that location because it's the stairwell, and then on the back side is actually the kitchen. So the kitchen will have all the cabinets and everything like that.
Great. Anybody else? Randy?
So when this property sold in 2018, there were some sewer issues going on. They have not been resolved. The road was tore up, and it was all the, I just would like it to make it a condition that before this gets approved, that this applicant resolves all the sewer and the road repair restoration issues with the township.
Mr. Stave, how about you come on up?
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Is the green light on in the mic?
Yes.
Okay, just make sure you pull that down and speak into it.
Okay.
Can you speak to the issues about the sewer, please?
So the issues with the sewer, when we bought the house, the septic tank actually failed inspection. So the previous owner was supposed to.
You're gonna have to slow down a little bit.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So when I bought the house, the septic system failed inspection. So the previous owner was supposed to tie into public sewer for us, but they couldn't do that before settlement because they needed the funds to do it. And the plumber that they hired actually he stopped coming and didn't do the work. And right now we are actually in a lawsuit over it. So we kind of have to wait until that's done, until we can figure out a solution.
Well, Mr. Sabia is up to date on where we are with the township.
Yes.
So right now you're still hooked up to the septic. Yeah, that unfortunately is not okay with the township. And the road is still not repaired.
Yeah.
And I understand it's a long lateral that, to connect to public sewer, and that's been the issue, but this is the problem we've been having now for 4 years.
Yes.
Why does the lawsuit have to resolve?
I'm not positive.
I would imagine it's financial.
I'm just saying it comes down to a money judgment, but why wouldn't you be able to implement what needs to be done and then
Go after that.
this way you can prove in court you've put the money out and you're entitled to it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're already taking a loan, I would imagine, out for these improvements, that's what I'm hoping, that you'd be able to roll the more money into this and connect. I mean, the EDU was already paid for.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm sure you're aware of. That was definitely paid for by Mr. Adea.
And what was that?
The EDU, the equivalent, the hookup for the sewer.
Okay.
So that was already paid for. But
I think the permit for that expired, didn't it?
you are talking to the person that can extend that permit.
Okay. All right.
So no worries on that.
Okay.
We just want the hookup to be completed, and we want the road restoration to be completed.
Trust me, I do too. And
You live
it's been
there,
a long
yes.
fight.
Yes,
It's been a long battle.
yes. So unfortunately, I am filling in today, or this probably would not have been recognized, but
So, Mr. Sabo, are you willing to take care of, I'm guessing what you're getting at is him to pay for it, and then after litigation, he gets the money back from whoever he's suing? Are you prepared to do that at this time?
As long as I can get the funds for it, yes. But
The condition that the township manager is putting on you is that you cannot do this without that.
I understand that.
What is the timing on it? Would he have to do that before he had started construction, or would that be a condition of a CO?
I think it would have to be before he starts construction.
Because that's technically gonna have to be all ripped up anyway, right?
I would be kind and say a condition of a CO.
Okay. So you gotta do it before this is finished, your work is finished.
Okay. I could do that.
We work with you here in Bristol Township.
Okay.
So,
That
on
works.
the record, that's the condition that,
Yes.
this variance, because I'm not saying the board's gonna vote yes to this variance, not vote, but if it does pass, then the condition is that, after you're done construction, you gotta take care of.
Yep.
So, regardless of litigation or not, it's gotta be done,
Yes, I understand.
okay?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody from the audience that lives next to Mr. Saba or like to come up and speak for or against this project? Okay, none. All right. I need a motion from the board. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Call the board, Mr. Secretary.
Gerard Lycon.
Yes.
Mark DeMarcus.
Yes.
Colleen Dunn.
No.
Jim McMahon.
Yes.
Ed Murphy, yes.
Conditioned upon completing the sewer hookup.
Yes.
Okay, George,
Correct.
you got a question?
Yes, that condition is on, he has to do the sewer first,
No.
correct? No?
Randy said she's gonna work with him.
Okay.
As long, the construction sequence doesn't matter as long as the sewer and the road restoration is completed prior to issuance of a use and occupancy permit.
Right. Yeah, doesn't matter what order, but they both have to be done before you get the UNO. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, Andrew Kim, 202 Susan Circle, North Wales, PA. Please come on up.
Thank you.
Green light. Yeah, we're good.
You're on.
All right. Good evening, Board. Bryce McGuigan here on behalf of the applicant, Andrew Kim. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. We are here today with reference to the property at 7103 New Falls Road. Together, Andrew Kim is the operator of a Boost Mobile franchise, which is under lease at the subject property. The property sits in the C Commercial District and is located specifically in the shopping center to orient everyone with the CVS and the Golden Dawn. The property is slightly unique because the parcel itself is literally just the Ace check cashing building. That's it. It's 1,200 square feet, nothing else around it. Everywhere around it is the shopping center. So,
Just for the record, I do have the notices and the posting. So
thanks, Ken. Sorry, I guess I jumped the gun.
No, you didn't.
So the building is home to the Ace Check Cashing along with a Cash for Gold business as well. And essentially, Mr. Kim has been under lease for a little over 6 months now to operate this Boost Mobile franchise within the building as well. He did not receive zoning approval before doing that, didn't know he had to because technically speaking, this is an additional principal use on a single parcel. He found out, I believe, when the fire marshal came by for an inspection and realized, wait, what's going on here? So as a result, we are now in front of you to request a single variance to allow an additional principal use within the same structure. The use itself is a retail use. Together, there are currently retail uses in the building. This is just selling a different product. What I would say is this is a unique situation where essentially because these uses are separate, because there's one separate person for each use, that's why we're here. If instead it was one person selling each of these products and providing these services, I would submit that that would be one principal use. It's just because it's separated somewhat, that's why we're here. Essentially, like I said, we're requesting single variance. Mr. Kim is with me here tonight. He will be able to testify, obviously, to the nature of his business, to the fact that his business has been operating for approximately 6 months and without any significant issues. To the extent that any issues were identified by the township or by the fire marshal, obviously, we are more than willing to work and address those. And we've already spoken with the property owner, who is also going to obviously help with that as well. So unless there are any preliminary questions, at this point I would like to call Mr. Andrew Kim to provide a little testimony here to the board. All right.
Here you go.
Thanks. All right.
Can you raise your right hand, Mr. Kim, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, Andrew, hey, if you could please just try to speak into the microphone right here so that everyone can hear. Please introduce yourself to the board.
My name is Andrew Kim, and then I'm operating the Boost Mobile franchise at this time, located in 7103 New Falls Road, Levittown, PA.
And do me a favor and just slow down a little, because everything you say is being typed down by the court reporter sitting over there. Okay? Don't worry.
My name is Andrew Kim.
Yeah.
And then I'm the operator in 7103 New Falls Road, Levittown, PA.
Sounds good. Now, you've been operating this Boost Mobile for about how long now?
It's about 7 years now.
7 months?
7 years. That location?
This location?
Yeah, 7 months. Yeah.
Okay, but you have more experience with Boost Mobile.
Yes,
It's been
I do.
about 7 or 8 years?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you started operating this location, did you know you needed zoning relief, or did that come as a surprise to you?
No, I didn't know that because it's like little tiny space that we just put that on the kiosk inside a building, so we didn't know that we need to get a permit for that.
And then you found out when I think it was the fire marshal who stopped by?
Marshal was stopping by the location and then give us some of the paper.
And then that's when you hired me, and that's why you're in front of these kind people here tonight.
Yes, it is.
All right. So with respect to the property, let's talk about the property. Now, for those who haven't been inside the building, it's the Ace check cashing, and it's a cash for gold business, right?
Yes.
And the way the building is set up is you walk in, and there's basically windows that they operate from.
Yes.
So if there's any customer, they don't actually go inside the store and shop around. It's window service.
Yes, it is.
So as a result, is there a large open area inside the building?
Yes, it is.
Now, some people may call that a lobby, but it's not exactly your tiny little lobby. It's over 630 square feet. Is that right?
Yes, right.
Which sounds tiny, but when we're talking about a 1,200 square foot building, it's half the building.
Yeah.
All right. And now your kiosk, it's the same type of kiosk that you would see in a mall or something like that.
Yes, I saw a lot of kiosk, same structure in shopping center.
And that's a professional Boost Mobile kiosk that obviously you get from Boost Mobile. Right. And that's located to the side of the 600 square foot lobby area. Is that right?
Yes.
And your kiosk is about 5 by 10 feet?
Yes.
So 50 square feet, give or take.
Yes.
Now, I have some pictures here that I think that I'd like you and the board to take a look at. let's give everybody a second to look over those, and why don't you look through them too while we're waiting. All right, Andrew, have you had a chance to take a look at those pictures?
Yeah.
And for the record, I have 3 photographs here. Oh, sorry, Randy, almost forgot. Thanks. All right, so for the record, there's a packet of 3 photographs, and are these photographs of your Boost Mobile kiosk?
Yes.
All right, so when you're looking at the first, the first picture here, now when you walk into the building, is that to, where is that? Is that to the left?
It's on the left side from the main entrance, yeah.
Okay, and so we see here that your kiosk kind of ends pretty much before any window starts, is that right?
Yes.
So the kiosk doesn't really get in the way of any of the other businesses, correct?
Yes.
And that's because there's such a large open area in the middle of that building.
Yes, it is.
All right, and then if we look at the next 2 pictures, again, it just shows different angles of that kiosk. Is that right?
Yep.
Now, in the 7 or so months you've been operating, have there been any issues in terms of there being, let's say, not enough space for your kiosk?
No, I have no issue.
Any issue with, customers not being able to get around okay in that main area?
No, it is fine.
And obviously, when the fire marshal stopped by, and we're here now, if there's any issues in terms of the fire marshal and different health and safety codes, obviously you'll satisfy those, and if you can't satisfy them, that no matter what this board here tonight decides, that you can't operate. Is that true?
Yes.
All right. And you've already talked with the property owner, and the property owner will help you satisfy any issues. Okay? So with that, if the board has any questions, this time we would rest.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, George.
I was in the store, I did buy my phone cover from them. Professional kiosk, wide open, easy to get to. I stopped to get a phone cover, and I was impressed, it was nice.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anybody else? So the third picture with the lottery sign over top of it, that's where they pay for the phone? So it's the second?
No, so let me ask a few questions about that to kind of help orient everybody. So, Andrew, when you're looking at the third picture here, all right, so what are we looking at here when you look straight ahead by that lottery sign? Is that the ACE check cashing?
Yeah, that's check and cash. Yeah.
All right, so anyone who patrons ACE check cashing goes to that window?
Yes.
And then if someone's here for the Cash for Gold business, do they go to a window
Yes.
on the other
Okay,
side,
yeah.
on the left side of this photograph? Is that a yes?
Yes.
All right. And then if someone wants to buy, let's say, a phone from you, or a cell phone plan, or a phone cover, they just deal with you or one of your employees at the kiosk?
Yes.
All right, so it's basically a separate place for each business. Is that essentially right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? No?
No.
Okay. Randy's not here, so anybody from the audience come up for or against this project? Okay, need a motion.
Motion approved.
I need a second. I'll second. Anybody on the denial? Call the board.
Gerard Lycon.
Yes.
Mark DeMarcus.
Yes.
Jim McMahon.
Yes.
Colleen Dunn.
Yes.
Ed Murphy, yes.
Good luck, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
I got another one.
Okay, before we get to the last thing on the agenda, I just want to speak, I got a letter here that I'd like to read. Listen, everybody knows this is not a political board, okay? So, you get Representative or Congressman Fitzpatrick or whoever sends a letter, that's great. But it does not influence this, it's not supposed to influence this board. So I just want to read a letter in transparency that I received from Representative Tina Davis, State Representative Tina Davis. Dear Mr. Chairman McMahon, I am writing to express my strong support for the item number 5 on the June 13th agenda. This is a variance request for proposed affordable senior housing development adjacent to the Norton Avenue Baptist Church. There is a very serious affordable housing crisis today, and senior citizens are being the hardest hit. Their fixed incomes have not been able to keep up with the exploding housing market. I believe that this project will help to relieve the problem by providing clean, safe, and affordable housing for vulnerable population. This project has the full support of Pastor James Evans, the Norton Avenue Baptist congregation, and the surrounding community. Age-restricted housing will not add any further financial burden to our schools, to our school district, and will add a commercial tax base. The project will also provide good local construction jobs right here in our backyard. I understand that when the project came before you initially, the developer was asking for 27 variances. In the time since, they have worked hard with the township officials to modify the proposal in the manner that you have asked and have now reduced their number to 6 variances. This project will allow longtime residents to stay in their community and remain connected to their roots. Approving these variances will help them to age with dignity in the place they call home. Thank you for your time and strong consideration of this letter and this important project. Sincerely, Tina M. Davis, State Representative, 141 District.
And who's that addressed to?
I'm sorry, hold on, let me
That's
get
right. You're gonna send out a copy.
I will send you a copy, yes. That is addressed, it's addressed to me, James McMahon, Chairman,
Okay.
Bristol Township Zoning.
So,
Board.
just to be clear for the record, the board did not ask this applicant to do anything, period. So, there's a reference in the letter that somehow it's implied that the board asked the applicant to reduce the number of variances. The board does not make such requests, so I just want that to be clear for the record. Doesn't mean that the board may not look upon that favorably because of that, but it was not at our request. So, just making that clear.
Okay, you're up.
If the board could just give me a moment, some of our professionals are putting up some visuals for everyone to take a look at. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Yeah. That works for everybody?
You get all the tough ones.
You can tell Mike that next time you see him.
All right, whenever you're ready.
All right. Good evening, Board. Bryce McGuigan here from Begley Carlin on behalf of the applicant MBID of Delaware LLC. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. We're here with reference to the property, or properties rather, located at 1150 Norton Avenue here in Bristol. There are 11 underlying parcels that we are here today to discuss some zoning relief for. The properties together are zoned in the R3 district, and taken together, the aggregate total is about 1.37 acres of land. They're presently improved by an existing First Baptist Church of Norton Avenue, They are also improved with daycare and some related accessory structures. However, 7 of the 11 parcels are currently vacant. Each of those parcels is approximately 0.1 acres, about 25 feet wide. There's not much you can candidly do with each of those parcels by themselves. So the plan here today is, our proposal, is a 51-unit affordable housing complex for senior citizens. It will be a 55-plus community, and will consist of specifically 46 one-bedroom apartments and 5 two-bedroom units. If this project looks familiar, that would make sense, because an iteration of this has been before the board. Significantly back in March of 2021, March 1st, the board reviewed a prior version of this and denied the relief. What I will say is, in the time since, this project has undergone quite a significant change. As Representative Davis referenced in her correspondence to the board, the prior version of this, when the applicant was here with a different counsel, 27 variance requests. And essentially what happened was the project was rushed through. It really was. And it wasn't ready for your review. And we made a mistake by pushing this project through when it was in an incomplete phase. So since then, the applicant here has really taken the advice, the suggestions and the criticism and the questions that were raised during that hearing, took that really into consideration. And it has been 16 months since that hearing. And during that time, the applicant has basically gone back to the drawing board, has had conversations with the township, has taken input from the township engineer, and these plans have gone through multiple iterations. And essentially, what you have before you is a vastly, I would submit, improved plan, and as you'll hear some of the specifics in a few moments. But the nuts and bolts of it are that the whole complex has been redesigned, the whole plan. You have now the new version of it, which you see in your packets and on the board over there. It consolidates these 11 small mismatched parcels into one contiguous lot. And in that one parcel, we plan on having the apartment complex, again, for affordable housing, senior citizen restricted only, as well as the existing church. What this does is a couple things. Compared with the prior plan, which we also have on the board, and we'll be happy to go through that later in the presentation, the building's actually a natural shape now, as opposed to before where it was slightly unusual. What you also have is the parking is integrated into the lot, whereas before the seniors would have had to cross one street to get to one parking lot and a separate street to get to a separate parking lot. What we also have is a building that better conforms with the height of the surrounding neighborhood, because we took off one entire story. In doing so, the aggregate square footage, we now have a less dense unit calculation. We went from 56 units down to 51. We've also, in doing this, we've also increased parking. We've made it more uniform, and we've increased parking as well. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we've reduced our variance count from 27 by nearly 20. So we're down here for, there are 8 technical variances, but they deal with 6 separate issues. I have with me tonight a wide variety of our of people for the board's consideration for testimony. We have Bruce Morgan, a client who's had over 30 years of experience in constructing affordable housing complexes and age-restricted affordable housing complexes. We have Mr. Elka, our engineer on the project. He testified before you previously last year, and he's been incredibly knowledgeable in both the prior iteration as well as where we've come to today and how we've gotten there. We also have representatives from our architectural firm who's designed those beautiful renderings you see before you. I can't stress this enough, that I know that affordable housing, when people think about that, there's a certain image that sometimes comes to mind. And what we're trying to do here is anything and everything but that. We are trying to construct elevated affordable housing, and we think this area especially, and I would submit that I agree 1,000% with what Ms. Davis referenced in her letter, that this is an area that has really needed some for a while. There has not been a affordable housing unit like what we're proposing, I believe, and Mr. Morgan will be happy to testify to that in a little more detail. But before I bring up my witnesses, I just want to go over a little bit about this plan, about the variances that we're requesting. So essentially, we've whittled this down to 8 technical variance requests. First involves building coverage. Now, there's 2 ordinances at issue for building coverage, but essentially we're requesting approval for 35.3% coverage, where a maximum is 20% is otherwise allowed for an A4 multiple family dwelling, which our use is. There's also an otherwise cap on the R3 district for 30%. So that's the first overall request. The second involves building density. Our density that we're asking for is 37.2 units per acre, where 14 units per acre is otherwise the maximum allowed. We're also asking for a variance to allow multiple uses to be permitted on a single lot, which will allow the complex and the church to remain on the same parcel. And essentially, this is a type of variance where now there are multiple uses as well, so there's going to remain multiple uses, just of a different sort. We're also seeking a variance for impervious surface. Our impervious surface ratio that we're asking for is 74.3%. Now that appears to be a slight departure from the 40% otherwise allowed. However, for an A4 development of this sort, what we would submit is it is well within keeping with not only other A4 multifamily uses, but also some of the other properties in the surrounding area. Our next variance involves buffers. The ordinance requires buffer yards of 25 feet with respect to when you're buffering an institutional use, such as a church, from neighboring residential uses, or technically the industrial use across the street. So we have a variance request with respect to the buffer yards on all 4 sides of the property. And our last variance is with respect to parking. And I think this is the one that we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about here tonight, because obviously parking is a concern in the area. We're seeking approval for 50 off-street parking spots. However, we also have an additional 14 spots on-street. The last request is not a variance, but is a special exception. Pursuant to our plan, we're having a combined parking lot with both the church as well as the apartment use. And if you're requesting a variance for decreased parking, if it involves a collective combined parking lot, we request a special exception to allow that to happen. Again, that's a special exception, and we'll obviously go through some of those details, not only with our engineer, but also with our traffic engineer, Mr. Horner, who is here as well. Unless there's any preliminary questions, like I said, I have our engineer, I have our traffic engineer, I have our architect, I have our client, Mr. Morgan. I also have Pastor Evans, who's been the pastor at Norton Avenue First Baptist for quite a while, as he will testify in a few moments. So unless there's any preliminary questions?
Anybody have any questions? Continue.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, good.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Jordan. Don't ever be sorry about asking questions.
Parking. I hear a lot of parking, sharing with the church, off-street parking. There's not enough parking for all these people here. They're going to park off on the street and maybe share with the church.
Yeah, so.
Not to refund that, when church is there or whatever. They have a
Of course. We factor that in, especially Sundays. We factor that in to our calculations here because, generally speaking, one of the strengths of this application is the fact that, if we were requesting approval for just a regular multifamily development, that would never work. That would never work here. Parking would be a significant concern. But the fact that we're offering affordable housing together with a 55 and over community, those factors combined make the parking situation vastly different. Because essentially, and as you'll hear from Mr. Morgan, who again has been doing this for over 30 years, when you have an affordable housing, age-restricted community, most of the people who live there don't have cars. We have 46 single-bedroom units. This is what this is envisioning. The average guest here, the average tenant is going to be somebody who has worked their whole life, who's held steady 9-to-5 work, but maybe doesn't have enough to really retire. So doesn't have enough to pay for their own housing. So this is going to be a place where they can have affordable housing and a place where they can spend their twilight years and a place that's befitting someone like that. And especially coupled with the church, you know, that's kind of, as the pastor will say, this is a use, this is a need that this community has. But from a parking standpoint, from a pure parking standpoint, we, as you'll hear from both Mr. Morgan, as well as our traffic and parking engineer, Dave Horner, the amount of parking that this use needs is only about maybe 15, 20 spaces, maybe. Because most of these tenants, they're not gonna have cars. And in fact, one of the services that we offer is a transportation service that will take them into town, that will provide all these different services because they don't drive. So because of that, combined with the church, which again, most of the time the church is not as busy as you would expect from a comparable use. Sundays is the big thing. And the additional on-street parking is for those Sundays, or maybe it's for Christmas Mass or Easter Mass. As you'll see from our traffic and our parking testimony, that when you combine all of this, the worst case scenario, we're still covered. And we have a contingency, there's an additional, we can work out a deal, we can get a little bit of parking across the street on an absolute, if everything else goes wrong. What I would tell you is, there's a reason why this room is full. It's full of people who not only are members of the congregation of the church and who are excited to see this development, who are going to testify to the need of this community for this development, but you also have some, I would submit, some of the local residents here who are also very interested in seeing this move forward. I will tell you, we've spent the past year and 3 months trying to work out these issues and trying to put together this plan in front of you here today. And as you'll hear, we're not going to be done after this. Mr. Morgan, after he gets done through this process, building this, he's going to be the manager of this of this apartment complex. So he's not going anywhere. So if there's a parking issue, he's going to be hearing it day in and day out from Miss Elton and from the township. And he's not interested in creating problems for himself. So from a purely selfish perspective, you have that too. But again, a lot of work's gone into this, and we're prepared to go through that with you here tonight.
And one more question, maintaining the property, that's all going to be done by the apartment?
Correct.
Association?
Correct.
Not the township?
Not the township. And again, a part of what we're trying to do here, as you can see, we've put a lot of thought into this, and we're going to put a lot of money into this too, to make these.
It looks great.
Yeah, and that's what we're really trying to do. Try to help build up the area. Try to provide something that's not your typical affordable housing. And even though we're asking for a variance for the buffer yards, we're also requesting a variance to allow that buffer to be planted in different parts of the property, in different locations. And part of that is because we want it to be a green property. We want it to be nice. We want it to look like home. And we want all the local neighbors, when they walk down the street or when they're driving down the street, to pass this and think, that is a really gorgeous, gorgeous building, and something that's actually an attribute to the community rather than a detriment. So this is something, again, like I said, we fully admit and we fully acknowledge that when we were here before you last year, the project wasn't ready. It really, really wasn't. And you could see that not only because of the 27 variances that we've requested, but also by looking at the actual plans, you could tell too. We think this is a different story. And like I said, we're excited to go through that with you tonight. And I apologize in advance if this is a little longer than some of the prior presentations. But we'll do our best to get to it. All right, no problem. All right.
Anybody else have any questions?
So the plan is to knock down the church?
No. One second. We're gonna get to the people that live in the neighborhood after their presentation's over. So we will get to you, I promise. Okay?
Yeah. And just to confirm before I present our witnesses, the plan is to have this affordable housing, a senior citizen complex, and the church on the same property. That's the plan. And we're going to go through some of the details.
You say something
we're getting out of control here, okay?
Yeah.
Let's get back to
And
your presentation.
I also understand that there's going to be a chance at the end of this where any neighbors here in attendance, anyone here period in attendance, can ask questions. And myself and all of my clients and our experts will be more than happy to answer any of those questions for everyone here tonight. All right. All right. Bruce.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God.
I do.
Can you spell your name, please?
BruceMorgan. Sure.
All right. Evening, Bruce. Please introduce yourself to the board.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having us back. It's good to see you, and I'm very excited to tell you about the project's changes that we've made.
Where do you work, Bruce?
I work for a firm, my firm, called BCM Affordable Housing.
All right. And what's your role there?
I'm the president. I'm also a development principal, along with my partner, Ingerman Affordable Housing, on this project.
So can you just give a little bit of to the board, just explain a little bit about yourself, your background, your experience?
Sure. I've been building affordable housing for 30 years in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. I began with Ingerman as an employee about 30 years ago, and I started their construction company. I did that for 4 or 5 years, and then I moved on to managing the entire firm. Then I went on to managing the development side and the construction side, and then I went out on my own. But I have an arrangement with them where we work together. So even though I'm independent, technically, they're my partner on several transactions, including this one.
Well, you mentioned this one, so let's talk about this. Are you familiar with the property here on Norton Avenue?
I am.
All right. What's your role in this development here that we're here to talk about today?
I'm the developer, and I would be the one that you would see and you would talk to. And if there's any questions, I would be the one who would answer the questions. I am responsible for this project, and that's from the development side, which is going through the approvals, working with the architect and the engineer, raising the funds, getting to a closing, turning it over to our construction company. I go to all the construction meetings throughout about the 14-month period it would take to build the project. We then finish the project. We then turn it over to our management company, and I work with the management company on the lease-up and the management. This project will be affordable, and there will be a deed restriction that the state of Pennsylvania mandates, which dictates the affordability. So we're at different tiers. The highest affordable tier will be 60% of the Bucks County median income. There's also some 50%, there's a few 20%. So there's a whole gamut of income spread to ensure that the project remains affordable.
All right. So fair to say, soup to nuts, you're the guy on this project.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's talk about it a little bit because I know we have a lot of interested people here. So if you could give our elevator pitch, what exactly are we doing? This property right here, it's 11 parcels right now, right? Mm-hmm. And we're trying to combine all those?
Yes, we are.
And if that happens, if that comes to pass, what's going to go there? How's it going to look?
So we're looking to take 11 parcels and doing what's called a reverse subdivision and make it into one parcel. We're not going to subdivide. Instead, what we're going to have is a condominium. So the church will have one portion of the property, and we will have another portion of the property, but there will be no subdivision. Church will stay. There are 3 other ancillary uses, 3 other ancillary buildings. One's a daycare, one is a social, and the other 2 are social service providers. Those 3 other little buildings will be knocked down, and the larger affordable apartment building will go in its place.
All right. Now, you mentioned it, and I mentioned it earlier. You were previously in front of this board, I think through Zoom, though, with a similar project. Is that right?
Yes.
So if you could explain briefly, what's different between then and now? Why are we back?
So first, I'd like to say thank you for having us back. We were here about 14 months ago, virtually, and it was the middle of COVID. It was extremely frustrating, I think, for you and for us. When we were denied, the first thing I did is I went to the pastor and I said, Pastor, how do you feel? What do you want to do? And he said, Bruce, the reason why we came before the zoning board hasn't changed. There's a real need for affordable housing, especially senior affordable housing in Bucks County. Last year, the county gave us $800,000 to help put off the funds on this project. This year, they're giving us $1 million. So the county is more committed to this project year over year, as are we. He said there's a real need for affordable housing. There's a real need for affordable housing in my parish
and in the community. And he said he's very committed to doing it. So our next step was to arrange a meeting with township officials. We met with Randy, we met with Mr. Bowen, we met with all of your design professionals. And we said, listen, how can we improve this project so it's more palatable to the town and to the zoning board? The first thing they said was, you're just too big. They said, make it smaller, make it conform height-wise. So we took a floor off. We went from 4 floors to 3 floors, and now we're in conformance with the height requirements. They said, to the best of your ability, make it conform to setbacks. So we repositioned the building to get it as conformant as we could possibly do that. They said, change the design. It's now it's canted on a funny angle. It's now on a right angle. And that was the biggest things. Oh, they said work on the parking. So we improved and increased the parking. We kept all of the design features, which we are very proud of, in that it's first quality materials. All of these apartments will have full-size washers and dryers in every apartment. There's a gym in this building for the residents. There's a whole host of social services in this building. Our typical senior residents have worked their entire life. Typically in the service industry, they just don't have a lot of money. They're in your community right now. They're at the age, even though this building is 55 and older, our typical resident is not going to be 55 years old. Our typical resident is going to be in their mid-70s or older. They typically live in a 2-story house. They have to navigate stairs, and they have to maintain the building, and they also have to pay taxes. Being on a fixed income, it's very difficult to do those 3 things. What they're looking to do is downsize and live in a community that is made for a senior citizen, as opposed to what you typically see as you drive around Bucks County, which is a walk-up 3-story apartment complex. These seniors can't navigate those stairs. They can't do it in their home, and they can't do it on a typical garden apartment. So what we have done is we've provided 2 elevators within this building. We've made it extremely energy efficient. We've provided social services. We have an agreement with Bucks County, Lower Bucks County Hospital, and with BCHIP to provide medical services in the building, in the doctor's office that we have in the building. There'll be health and wellness services as well. There'll be flu shots. There'll be healthy eating seminars. This building is designed from a social services standpoint to have these people live healthy, enjoyable lives as they get older in place and serve as role models in your community. The pastor and his church will also be providing services. Right now, the pastor provides, through his no longer bound social service provider, drug and alcohol counseling. We're going to make that available to the seniors as well. So we think we have, and one other thing which is extremely important, we're going to be providing transportation services. A lot of our seniors, as Bryce said earlier, a lot of our seniors give up their cars. A car is a real expense, especially in today's world with gas prices being really high. But not only just that, it's the maintenance of the car, it's the acquisition of the car. A lot of our seniors give up their cars when they move into our community. Typically, 20% of our seniors keep their cars in the community, and the rest, they give it up because we provide transportation services. All of our social services, including the transportation service, is provided at no additional cost to the resident. The transportation service will go to various points around the area, whether it be downtown Bristol, whether it be to the grocery store, whether it be to a hospital, on a daily basis, on a regularly scheduled basis throughout the week. So all they have to do is just get on the schedule and get in the van and go there. They'll get dropped off, they'll get picked up.
And Bruce, I want to touch on, because you mentioned parking. I know that is an issue that the board's raised, an issue that came up last time, and it's an issue that just colloquially, that's an issue in the area. Yes. So you mentioned that in your experience, about 20% of the unit occupants retain their cars. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's something that you've seen throughout all your years of doing this.
I've built many, many affordable housing properties for seniors, both in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and pretty much across the board. that's a really good number to use.
And that's also, we've retained an engineer to assist with parking and to review all this. Is that right?
Correct.
And
David Horner is a licensed engineer. He'll speak shortly, and he'll testify to the fact that he has done calculations and done research, and he can substantiate my claim.
And again, this is you heard me mention before, after this is all built, you're not just going to walk away. Is that right?
No, I will be the one that you will call. I got a call from the town of Woodbridge today, from the mayor's chief of staff, because there was something going on in the community, and she said, can you please take a look at this? It's nothing bad, but she called me today to have me take a look at it on behalf of the mayor. I built that project 5 years ago, so I am around, I'm available, and I will answer your questions at any time. You can call me on a weekend, you can call me at night, I'm always available.
And so at the end of the day, just kind of a little sort of sum up here, the rendering you see over there, that's what we hope and that we expect, and that's what we're aiming for this to look like when all is said and done, provided that we're approved here today.
That's what it will look like, yes.
Right. And again, compared with the prior version that we rushed through last year, this one, cut down the floor, right?
Yes.
5 fewer units?
Yes.
More parking?
Yes. Can I walk you through it a little bit?
Yeah, go here.
So this is a 2-story lobby. When you walk in this building, it's not 1 story like this, it's going to be 2. It's going to be very, very large, and it feels very open. This is the management office right here. This gives the building eyes on the street. The manager sees everybody who goes in. This is the only way in. There is fire exits, but this is the only way in. So the manager sees who comes and goes. The building is entirely sprinklered for fire protection, and there's going to be cameras both on the inside and the outside of the building that will always be on. So we will have a very close relationship with your police department and your fire department. If there should be something that comes up, our cameras will be there. There's going to be no parking signs where it's prescribed on the plans, and we have a relationship with the towing company, so if in fact people do park where it says no parking, they'll be towed. There's no two ways about it. We really keep up with what we agreed to and maintain the property. Oh, I'm sorry. This is brick. You can see it throughout. And this is what's called cementitious siding. For those who aren't familiar with cementitious siding, it's not vinyl siding at all. This is made of a very hard material. It's very heavy. It can be painted many different colors, and it lasts a really long time.
And Bruce, if you will, why don't we swap back? All right. Obviously, this is you're gonna have a partnership moving forward in terms of living on this property. It's going to be the apartment complex, and it's also going to be the Baptist church. Is that right?
That's correct.
Is this the first time that you've worked with a church on a project like this?
No. I met Pastor Evans through a very long-standing relationship I have with a series of African-American Baptist churches in both states, Pennsylvania and New Jersey. About 15 years ago, Pastor Parker in South Jersey called me at the Antioch Baptist Church, and he said, listen, I have a great church, and I have a senior aging parish. They live in the area right now, and church to them is much more than just Sunday services. They come, and it's social, and they get together, and there's a lot of friends in the area. But as they move further and further away, they can't get to the church. So he said, there's some property across the street. He said, I don't have the money necessarily to buy it, but I can help you with the community if you could figure out a way to raise the money and build the building. So we built 2 buildings for him. He liked them so much, he named one building after himself, Parker Hall, and he named one building after the church, the Antioch Manor, after the Antioch Baptist Church. He then introduced me to a series of pastors who then introduced me on and on. I met Pastor Evans through a project that I built in West Oak Lane in Philadelphia with the Mount Airy Baptist Church. So this has been a very long relationship with these churches. I truly, truly believe that if you do one good project, you get another good project to work on. If you do one project that has problems, you get no new projects. And this has been going on for about 15 years.
Thank you very much, Bruce. With that, if the board has any questions.
Can I just state one other thing? This will go to the point of affordability. We have to do a market study. So it's an independent, licensed professional, and they go out and they survey the area. And they look and they say, what's the competition? What are they charging? What are their occupancies? And what they found was similar to what I was talking about earlier. The competition is typically garden apartments where you've seen them all. There's breezeways and you walk up 3 flights of stairs if you're on the 3rd floor, and they're built 20 years ago. There's very, very few that have been built in the last 10 years. The average 1-bedroom rent in this area is $1,600. Our 60% rents, which is our highest tier of affordability, is $950. So we're a third less than that, less than the market. And we'll be brand new, and we'll have access to a gym, and we'll have washers and dryers in the units, and central air conditioning. It'll be a much nicer product for the seniors. On the 2-bedroom side, the average rent in this area is $1,960, market rate, whereas we're going to be $1,125. So it's about $800 plus cheaper. Our rents are dictated by the state. I can't move people in and bump the rents. The state tells me I go up 2% a year, give or take, and I have to make the numbers work. And that's how we look at this project. We know what the rents are going to be. We build a quality project that's going to stand the test of time and last, and the town's going to be happy. Our residents are going to be happy.
Thank you very much, Bruce.
Sure.
The board has any questions?
Yeah. All 11 parcels, they're owned by the church?
Correct.
So there's no, that has to be bought out? Or
No.
I probably without these variances, this project, is it fully funded at this time, or?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
I do. Bruce, thank you for bringing this to our doorsteps, first. But second, I looked at the numbers for Bucks County and Bristol Township in respect to the median household income. Would Bristol Township residents get preference for these apartments? Because it is a $15,000 difference based on the 2020 census.
So we can definitely do a preference. We've just done this, we're about to do it in a project in northern New Jersey in a town called Rahway with a senior citizens building there. What we can do is say seniors that live within a 2-mile radius of the property, which is Bristol Township, would get a preference. So in other words, the way we market this property, we have to go through fair housing. We post a sign, we're going to have to put something in the newspaper, and we say, here's the website, go to this website and register. And then everybody who registers, about 60 days prior to when we were going to get the certificate of occupancy, that everybody is on that list, and the list is big, has a fair shot. Because what we do is we send out applications to everybody on that list. And within that application, it says, on this date, we will start taking, and at this time, we'll start taking applications. And the date and time are very important because people, they'll camp out. We literally will have lines. They drop off the application. We'll have a trailer there, or we'll probably work with the pastor and do it in his church. And we'll date stamp all the applications. And then we'll put them in 2 piles. We'll put them in the Bristol pile, and we'll put them in everybody else's pile. And we'll go down the Bristol pile first. And if we don't fill it, we then go to the other pile. But if someone from Bristol comes in, we can move them to the top of the list.
Anybody else? Okay.
At this point, I would like to call Pastor Evans.
Hi. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So help me God, I will.
Thank you.
Good evening, Pastor. Please introduce yourself to the board for me.
Good evening. My name is James Evans. I'm the pastor of the Norton Avenue First Baptist Church in Bristol, Pennsylvania for 30 years.
Oh,
I'm also the executive director of No Longer Bound.
Director of.
No Longer Bound.
On?
Yes.
Green light? Okay, maybe just.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, much better. There you go. Yeah. Have you thought about commercials? No, never mind.
Yes.
All right. So you said you're executive director of?
No Longer Bound.
What is No Longer Bound?
No Longer Bound is a prevention ministry that we do for children. We do type 2 diabetes training. We work with Bucks County Drug and Alcohol Commission, getting grants for them to do programs for our children, to do the nursing, where we deal with the things that happens in the community where our children go out and do ministry. They go on trips. We train them how to be strong young ladies and young men. We have one we call Steps for Success, which teaches young ladies how to be young ladies. We have Boys to Men, which teach young men how to be be men. Those are some of the things that we do every year. We partner with the school districts, and so there's a lot that we do.
Great. Well, if you could do me a favor here, because obviously we're here to talk about the area right around your church, that property. So how did this come to pass? How did you meet Bruce, and how are we here?
It came to pass because my big brother ministry, Pastor Brown from Mount Airy Baptist Church, he was working with Bruce on Gala, which is what he built across the street from his church. And it was amazing because the residents really didn't want it to happen. But after they built it and they have access, they fell in love with the place because the things that they're being provided, the medical facilities that come in, and we looked at it, and when we started talking about doing one here in Bristol, Pastor Brown introduced me to Bruce Morgan, and I asked him to come up to Bristol to take a look at the property we had. And after he looked at it, he said, I think we could work this. And then we reached out to B-CHIP as far as hoping to get the hospitals involved, and we were hoping to get 1 day a week from them. And they surprised us and said they would give us 5 days a week, each one, St. Mary's and Lower Bucks Hospital, which not only for the residents of the building, but also for the community. And so we were excited about that.
Now, you were involved with the project when ultimately it came before this board last year and ultimately was denied at that point. Is that right?
That's correct.
So after it was denied, you still kept in communication with Bruce and you went back to the drawing board. Is that right?
Well, you have to look at the way I had to look at it. I had to deal with seniors who couldn't afford their medication, and we would, from the church, would give them the money to get their medication. Some of them have a hard time doing their rent or doing taxes. And when I talked with Pastor Brown and he introduced me to Mr. Morgan, it was a no-brainer for me that we need to look at this, because when you really look at our community, it's one thing to know the area, but it's another thing to know the community. I know the community. I know the pain of the community. I know the people who are suffering. I know the people who's looking for a way to be able to stay in the community but not have to pay an arm and a leg to live there. And those are some of the things that I have to take in consideration, because I'm with them, literally. So I couldn't just give up on it. It don't make sense.
And those same concerns, those same issues that you want to address, those are still concerns now. Those are still issues now within your congregation and area. Is that right?
Well, you see inflation.
You
see food going up. You see gas going up. You see rent going up. You see housing going up. I mean, this is something that we're making up.
So, obviously, you're familiar with the changes that have been made to the plan over the past year and change. Is that right?
That's right.
Now, you said you've been pastor at your congregation for 30 years.
30 years.
All right. So, fair to say you're a little familiar with the area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably a bit of an understatement. So, do you have any concerns about this being able to work and exist in connection with your church?
The thing about this is the fact that it's needed. I mean, Stevie Wonder could see this. It's needed, and the fact that somebody has to step up and provide what our seniors need. And you know, I look at the board and, you know, people are getting tired, it's getting later, but the fact of the matter is I see these people on a weekly basis, sometime on a daily basis, people who are going through, people who are having a hard time. How can you just throw in the towel and say, we can't do this? There's got to be a way.
Sure. And do you think this is a way?
I know it's a way.
Now, I want to ask you a couple technical questions here, because as pastor of Norton Avenue First Baptist, let me ask you this. How often do you have Mass?
We have church service every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
We have Bible study every Wednesday.
All right.
And during pandemic, we have Sunday school every Monday for our children. Then we also have services for the deacon ministry, for the usher ministry. I mean, we constantly try to stay engaged with the people so that they know that we're working with them. But when we're working with them, we're also hearing some of the things that they're going through.
Sure. So let me ask it like this. Is it fair to say that the busiest day of the week for the church is Sunday?
Sunday morning.
All right. About how many people you come to Mass, more or less, on a Sunday?
Depends on what Sunday it is.
Give me the range.
And this is for a Baptist church, just to give you something. We go by first Sunday, second Sunday, third Sunday, fourth Sunday. First Sunday, the senior choir sings. So second Sunday, you have the youth choir sing. And depending on which choir is singing, will tell you how many people come into the church, because most people want to hear their children sing. But because we've been dealing with the pandemic, we're also doing virtual. Okay, but on a typical Sunday morning, if you talk about how many cars are in.
Correct.
And we do a van ministry to pick up people as well. We might have maybe 30, but remember, the cars are also bringing not just one person. Cars are bringing more than one person. And so they're part of the family. They're part of the Norton Avenue family.
And if our parking engineer, Mr. Horner, when he comes up and testifies, and if he testifies that pursuant to his own study of the area, pursuant to his own eyes.
I ain't worried about it.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it.
Because you've been there for 30 plus years, right?
Not only that, but we do everything decently and in order.
And you also know that obviously if there's a parking issue here, that's not going away anytime soon if that's built.
No.
So you don't have any concern of there being a parking issue, is that right?
Not even a little bit.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to say to this board here tonight?
Help us. That's it. That's all I can ask.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Appreciate it. But the board might hang on here, Pastor. The board might have one or two questions.
Anybody have any questions?
All right. Now the round of applause.
I'm sorry, I just want to put one thing on the record. Bryce alluded to this, but I think it's important we quantify it. Liz, who's right to my left, is my associate, and she ran our numbers. And when we did our pro forma, we used your tax rates. And we're pro forming in year one, first year the building is operating, to pay approximately $65,000 a year in taxes. You're getting nothing right now because it's a nonprofit. So you're going to get $65,000 from us in year one. And I think that's a substantive number. And I think you all should be aware, we're not asking for a tax abatement in any way. We're going to be active, participating members of this community. We're not going to burden your schools. There will be no children living in our building. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
So if the Norton Avenue First Baptist wants to strengthen its children's choir, that's not going to come from you?
No, it's not going to come from us.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Bruce. All right. Greg, if you don't mind.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Gregory Elko, E-L-K-O.
Thank you.
All right. Greg, do me a favor. Introduce yourself to the board and go through a little bit about what you do and where you work.
Sure. Good evening. Glad to see you again. Again, my name is Greg Elko. I'm a managing principal at Langen Engineering and Environmental Services. Our office is in Warrington. I've been with the firm 29 years, a little different than the 30 years that the previous folks have worked at their places. I run the site civil department there. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of Pennsylvania. I have a bachelor's and master's degree from Rutgers University in civil engineering. I have testified before at many municipalities, including this one, and I'm responsible for putting together the zoning plans for this application.
We recognize him as an expert.
Okay, beat me to it. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
All right. Greg, you've designed these plans, is that right?
Correct.
And you designed the prior set of plans for, we were back here in March of last year.
Correct.
All right. So I don't want to beat a dead horse over all this, but why don't you take a couple minutes, explain to the board what we're proposing here and how it's different from what we previously proposed.
Sure. Would you mind, can I switch with you?
By all means.
I like to stand near the, if it's okay, I'd like to stand near the plans. So let me just quick walk through the existing conditions. A lot of this was talked about, but I just wanted to show you. So the subject property, again, 11 small parcels, generally bounded by Elwood Avenue to the south, Norton Avenue to the east, Watson Avenue sort of in the middle of the parcels. So there's land to the north of Watson and land to the south of Watson. The church is located on the land that's to the south of Watson. Altogether, those properties is 1.3 acres. You'll see that there's no areas of floodplains or wetlands or woodlands or steep slopes or any natural resources of any kind on this site. They're generally developed parcels. The site is in the R3 zoning district, as is the surrounding area. I'll show you here the area map that we submitted with the application, just to give you some general context. So again, the surrounding areas in the R3 zone. To the north and to the east are generally single-family residential districts and lots. To the south, there's a wooded area, and then there's this retail warehouse building that's to the south. And then to the west, you have the Gordon's Automotive Shop, which butts up against the property. There's a couple of unique things I'd like to just point out about the property, and it's relevant for the zoning relief we're asking for. So again, the small lots, many of these lots are undevelopable. They don't meet your minimum lot size for the zone. Some of them have 100% impervious coverage. Some of them have no setbacks. It's an odd assortment of very, very small, narrow lots. The property itself is narrow. It's only 175 feet from Norton Avenue to the western property line, so it's a bit narrow. Again, Watson Avenue bisects the property, and that'll be relevant when I show you the plan. We have the existing church to remain, which generally is in the middle of the property, and that's a structure that we have to work with. A unique feature about this, something that was pointed out to us by Gilmore, is that the Elwood Avenue right-of-way is 30 feet today, but it's on a plan that intends to, at some point in the future, widen it to a 50-foot right-of-way. So that reduces, generally speaking, the property area that we have to work with. So that was pointed out to us since the last application. And there's several nonconformities with setbacks that don't meet the ordinance that I'll get into in a little bit. All right, so our proposed project here, again, existing church to remain is this rectangle. This L is the new affordable housing building, apartment building, 51 units. Again, what the plan shows is a vacation of Watson Avenue. So Watson Avenue comes through the site here today. We're vacating it, so basically it's going to become part of the property. And we will convert Watson Avenue that exists to a dead end with a turnaround. And basically the lot size will increase to about 1.4 acres. So it's a little bit bigger. That area of Watson Avenue is about 0.2 acres or so. But what it does is, you can see it consolidates this into one parcel. And it cleans up a lot of all of the small non-conforming lots that exist there. And it allows us, frankly, to do this project. So it's important that Watson Avenue, the closure, gets designed right. We have a turnaround for delivery trucks for emergency vehicles. We have an emergency access there as well, which we worked with the town fire official before we submitted. We also understand that there may be a sanitary sewer main that runs through Watson Avenue. We don't know that for sure, but we are planning for it in the event that it is there by giving a sewer easement through the property. So it'll basically be between the apartment building and the church. That way, if that sewer is there, we have the ability to route it through the site. This arrangement, you can see, also allows us to have common shared facilities. So we have a parking lot, a 24-lot parking lot, basically in front of the apartment building next to the church, and a 26-lot stall parking lot to the south of the church. And then there's sidewalks, there's garden areas, there's landscaped areas. It allows the church and the apartment building to really enjoy all of these different amenities and site improvements that are there together. All right, so a couple of things that went into the layout. I think it's important for the board to just understand how we came up with the layout here. Again, existing church to remain, we have to work around that church. So what we did is, looking at the parcel, the bigger piece that is available for development is to the north. So that's where the apartment building went. You could see the orientation of the apartment building goes with the narrowness of the lot. I mentioned before the lot is somewhat narrow. So the long part of the L is in alignment with that part of the property. The apartment building faces Norton Avenue, which is consistent with the church. We want that coherence. But it's set back from Norton Avenue to give a parking lot in front of the church and in front of the apartment building. It allows circulation around through for traffic. And it allows, again, the series of sidewalks to connect the two uses and to the frontage. We're also proposing sidewalks along the entire frontage of all the streets. Elwood Avenue, Norton Avenue, and parking spaces. There's going to be 14 parking spaces that are designated on-street parking with stripes along the frontage there. Okay, so I'd like to get in just sort of a regional context. This will help inform some of the variances that we're asking for. I would offer to you that this particular location is in what I'll call a transitional area, a regional transitional area. So we have single-family homes that transition to a more dense or more commercialized area to the south, so from north to south. So we go from single-family, we get a little more dense with the church and with the Gordon's Automotive, and then there's the Pico station there, and then we get even more dense or more commercialized with the warehouse building and so on as you get further to the south here. So in my opinion, the apartment building at this location in this regional area really fits well. More so, I did review the township's comprehensive plan. I'm not going to cite chapter and verse, but there's a couple references in the comprehensive plan that support the development of the parcel as we're proposing it. The comprehensive plan does say the property is located in a residential opportunity neighborhood, which really promotes redevelopment. The comprehensive plan talks about infill development, where there's empty parcels or parcels that are otherwise unused for any other purpose, and it encourages development in those redevelopment or infill parcels. It says infill development can be mixed use, which is exactly what we're proposing with the church and the apartment building. And it talks about recommended actions for residential developments. It suggests the township monitor existing and proposed age-restricted developments to ensure that there's adequate supply in the region. It encourages infill development, as I said, and it talks about enhancing existing residential neighborhoods through the incorporation of alternative and attractive housing developments, which I believe this project certainly does.
And Greg, if I can just interrupt real quick. You mentioned some of those other vacant parcels. Are there currently, I believe, 7 vacant parcels?
That's correct, yes.
Can those be developed in any way as they currently sit?
Not at all.
And in your opinion, what we're proposing now, even though it does require some relief, is it your opinion that this is really the only way to effectively be able to build anything on those parcels?
Yes.
All right. Now, with respect to this A4 multi-dwelling use, pursuant to your review of the ordinance, that's a permitted use in this district, is that right?
Correct.
All right. And now what we're trying to do in terms of consolidation of these parcels, is this the least amount of zoning relief that we need in order to make reasonable use of this property pursuant to this permitted use?
Yes.
All right. Now, compared with the prior iteration, which the board denied, just if you could just go through some of the quick changes. Well, how is this different from that?
Absolutely. And I do have, I believe I have I'll just flash it up here real quick. Yeah, so our current plan, the previous plan. So what you can see is the building is an odd shape, as was described, and it basically hugs the church. Watson Avenue was not proposed to be vacated at that time, but you could see that there was these remote, I'll call them parking areas, that you had to cross streets to get to. So there's only 7 spaces, or 11 spaces rather, parking lot that was available immediately next to the church and the apartment building. Otherwise, all the parking was remote. And again, this required 27 variances and the special exception.
And now we're down to 8 variances and special
Correct.
exception. All right. And now with respect to those variances, I already went through them earlier. You were here for that comment, right?
Correct.
All right. And like I said, in your opinion, whether it's the building coverage, is that something that's reasonable for this property?
Absolutely, in my opinion, yes.
And same with the impervious surface?
Yes.
And any issues with stormwater as far as you're aware?
No, the issue with impervious surface, it sounds like it's a lot over, but because the parcel is so small, the percentage is inflated. We're less than half an acre over the impervious surface, and when we design this stormwater system, we'll work with the township engineers. It will be designed to handle what is on the property.
Right. And with respect to setbacks, we're compliant with setbacks, is that right?
Correct.
And we're asking for some relief from the buffering requirements, but again, we do want to buffer this property. We just want to be able to spread it out in a way that makes sense for the community and makes sense for the property.
Exactly. In fact, we are not asking for relief on the number of buffer plantings. It's just the widths of the buffers around the perimeter of the site. We intend to plant the required number of trees on the properties in just different locations that would make sense with this development.
And as far as the parking variance, we've got somebody who's going to talk about that in a minute. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. So in closing, and basically in terms of this project right here, what's your opinion in terms of whether this works for the property, whether this works in conjunction with the church, just from a zoning perspective?
Yeah, from a zoning perspective, it's my opinion that this project is in harmony with the community here. It will not impact negatively the public. It will, in my opinion, enhance the community. It'll enhance the church. It will provide, all good things as it relates to improvements on this property. It's not going to have a detrimental impact from a stormwater standpoint, from a traffic standpoint, as you'll hear. And I just think it's my opinion that this is a great project for the neighborhood.
Thank you very much, Greg. If the board has any questions.
Yeah, there is a monument sign proposed on the plan. There's no zoning relief that's needed. We're proposing the sign in conformance. It's run right here between the 2 entrances.
So if you're putting buffer trees somewhere else, they're not technically buffers.
Understood, which is why we're asking for the variance. Yep.
Anybody else have any questions?
Thank you.
At this point, the applicant would like to call David Horner.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good. Good evening, David. Please introduce yourself to the board.
Hi, my name is David Horner. It's Horner. I'm a traffic engineer with Horner and Cantor Associates.
If the board...
Horner and Cantor Associates, Canter.
If the board would like, I'll be more than happy to go through Mr. Horner's qualifications. No? Perfect. I don't think I have that on me, but I'll be more than happy to have Mr. Horner repeat it all. All right, Dave, if you could do me a favor, just are you familiar with this property?
I am.
Are you familiar with the plans?
Yes.
All right. Have you had the opportunity to review the potential parking implications of this project?
I have.
All right, just do me a favor and just tell the board, what are your thoughts?
Sure. So among the things I did in order to take a look at this, and I was not involved in the when we were here previously, I think one of the issues that had been raised by the township professionals was parking, make sure you can address that. So then they brought me in to take a look at it independently. So one of the things I did was obviously take a look at the church and talk to Pastor Evans. And you heard him testify that on a typical Sunday, there's approximately, I think he said, at most about 30 cars parked. And of course, the parking conditions right now are not what is proposed in terms of off-street and parking lot, defined lot. But I also myself went out there on a couple different Sundays. Now, not 30 years worth of Sundays, but I did go out on a couple different Sundays, and it confirmed to my own observations that there were between 20 and 30 cars parked for the church service on Sunday. That's clearly the worst period for parking currently. The other thing I did, and I have worked with Mr. Morgan on other projects of this type, and I've worked on other projects of this type with other organizations. So I talked to Mr. Morgan about what is projected in terms of the parking needs for the apartment complex, the senior affordable housing complex. As he testified to, his experience is about 20% of the residents have cars. That's about 10 cars out of the 50 residents or so. There's also staff, there's also visitors. It comes out to about 20 parked cars, and that I think is even a little high, but 20 parked vehicles at any one time for the apartment. Now, I also looked at my independent research, the ITE publication, Institute of Transportation Engineers, that has parking data that I'm sure this board's familiar with. You've heard testimony like that in other applications. From a national perspective, senior housing, they estimate for this size senior housing up to about 31 parking spaces at the very busiest time. Again, I don't believe that's what this product will yield, but even so, if I add the numbers together, what's being proposed, as you heard, is 50 off-street parking spaces and 14 on-street defined parking spaces for a total of 64. I would expect on the busiest day, which is Sunday, if you have the full complement of 20 parked cars for the apartment complex, you have about 30 parked cars for the church, that's 50. It's all contained within the lot. You have the extra parking spaces on street. Even if the ITE manual is to be applied, you still meet with the 64 spaces. We also heard, and I talked to Pastor about this as well separately, is what happens on, let's say, Easter. You know, that's the busiest day, or Christmas, or maybe there's a wedding or something like that. There's other arrangements that can be made, that do get made, including shuttle services, and perhaps off-site parking with a shuttle. And so that's what the pastor testified to with regard to if the church, and it's the church, not the apartment complex, if the church has an extra demand on their particularly busy days. But in general, you're going to have this parking now defined, contained, on-site, and you do have the extra 14 spaces on the street as well.
So based upon your own personal observations as well as your experience, do you anticipate there's going to be any sort of concern here in terms of a lack of sufficient parking?
I don't.
All right. Any reason, any other reason that you think this could be detrimental to the area or otherwise overwhelm the area in terms from a parking standpoint?
I do not, no.
All right. So thank you very much, Mr. Horner. If the board has any questions.
Yes, I do. So the 14 parking spots on street parking, they're just for the spillover of the church? Yes or no?
Well, I think that's where the need would be, if there is a need. Yes.
So is there any possible way, like, what I'm thinking is, okay, Sundays you need more parking, I understand that. So I don't want people parking there all week long if it's not necessary. What I'm trying to get at is it possible for church parking only?
I'll defer that to the applicant, but
I don't see that as an issue at all. And in terms of where the parking is, Dave, could you do me a favor here? Why don't you take this? Can you point out where the spots are going to be?
So the spots are going to be, there's on Elwood Avenue right here, there's 6, and then there's 4 spots over here on Norton, and there's 4 spots over here on Norton.
And
So that's the
interestingly, if I can. There's no houses or anything over here on Elwood, right? That's just wooded area and then the factory or the warehousing? Is that right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. And then over here, this is all vacant, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So the risk of, let's say, homeowners or someone else parking there, they're rather minimal, even without signage. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Right. And also, that's a public street. So if the township would be willing to put signs there, obviously we would work with them on that. But that's a public street, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
In your survey, did you take a look at Atkins Avenue and Plymouth Avenue to see if those cars, if, say, need be, cars were parked along those sides, would they be passable for the residents that live in the homes, not the apartment complexes?
I didn't look specific at those roadways. Your question is, if cars are parked there, would the roadway be a proper width to get drivers through? Is that the question?
They're the roads that are adjacent to the property.
Right. Well, you're talking about Norton in particular?
No, I'm talking about Atkins Avenue and Plymouth Avenue. They're on.
Here, let's.
So now you're talking about the streets that aren't proposed to have on-street parking related to this application, they're just.
No, just as pass through, just in case there is a need be for those streets to have cars parked from either the church or the apartments.
Right. I didn't look particularly at the widths of those roads. I can't answer that question here today as to whether it's wide enough for two cars to pass if there's cars parked. But I know that with this application, we're not proposing to use roads for parking. We don't believe that there's a need to accommodate. And as the pastor indicated, the church, and it's really the church use that's the dominating parking demand. If there's an issue, it's the church use that will accommodate in terms of shuttling or off-site locations, not encouraging their congregation to use the adjacent roadways.
And
right. I mean, it's certainly a question I could answer getting back to the board, but I do not know the width of those roads to be able to answer that question here today.
And to add on to that too, like I said, like Mr. Horner said and the applicant said, pursuant to our calculations and just physical experience too, we don't anticipate a parking concern. However, if obviously for those big events, whether it's Easter church, whether it is a wedding, a funeral or something like that, if there is a spillover issue, then that's obviously something that we'll address and can plan for moving forward. And the pastor will be more than able to direct his congregation in terms of, hey, if the lots are full, if the streets are full, this is where you park, this is what we do. And you can plan for that in the future. There's going to be zero issue of there being all of a sudden event that no one can plan for that's going to have that much parking that will overload even our calculations here. There's no risk of that. All right. With that, that concludes the applicant's presentation.
Just very briefly, when we did meet with the applicant in the very beginning after the first denial, Mr. Morgan succinctly, his memory is, and he's giving us a lot of credit. We did not succinctly tell him these are the specific things that you need to address. The township did not, just as the board does not, the township does not as well. We just said, please look at the denials and the reasons in the denial that you should be addressing. Our engineer did bring up the advice to look at vacating Watson, but we did not specifically address you should look at A, you should look at B, you should look at C. Just
How do you vacate Watson Avenue? That's the question I have.
how do you vacate a street?
Yeah.
It's no different than, I mean, we vacate a lot. It's there's a process. It's a legal process that we have. Sure. It's no different than vacating like a paper street. You know, it's an application process that the applicant has to do upon themselves, and they've actually taken the steps now to know. We said before you even submit an application, we'd want to know. You have to make sure that the surrounding property owners that are on either side that would be affected by the vacation of the street would be on board, and they have to sign off, and they've done that now already, because we wouldn't want this application to go forward if they weren't going to be able to vacate the street anyway. Mm-hmm.
I'll second.
Second from Mark DeMarco. Call the board.
Gerard Lycon.
Yes.
Mark DeMarcus.
Yes.
Jim McMahon.
Yes.
Colleen Dunn.
Yes.
Ed Murphy. Yes.
All right. Very quickly, this has nothing to do with this last hearing. We're accepting into evidence an affidavit.
Can you, we start, the meeting's still going on. Please. Thank you.
Hey.
We just have to finish up a couple things. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll take me 30 seconds. Okay, we're accepting into evidence, supplemental evidence, an affidavit from the YMCA of Bucks County and Huntington counties with regard, Hunterton, Hunterdon counties with an address of 2500 Lower State Road in Doylestown. And it's with regard to the property located at 601 South Oxford Valley Road. 601 South Oxford Valley Road. We're accepting it as supplemental evidence to allow for their signage to be on beyond 10 o'clock, provided that they comply with the signage requirements. So there was a condition issued in a previous opinion last month, and the testimony was they would not be occupying beyond 10 o'clock at night, when in fact there will still be people coming there to get picked up until 11 o'clock, and then they're going to reduce the signage brightness down to the minimum in the evening in order to help preserve the sign, and it will not interfere with the traffic light or anything else. And that's testimony that they did not put on at the last meeting. They wanted to come back here tonight, but rather than have another presentation, I asked their counsel to submit an affidavit, which I showed to the board before the meeting, and they've accepted it. So we're good. And I'll modify the opinion accordingly. They've given up their appeal rights, so there's not going to be any appeal.